You're listening to Dad Devotionals with Dave Domzowski. Subscribe to our newsletter at daddevotionals.com/subscribe. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast like Dad Devotionals? Well, you can, and it's easier than you think. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me give you a quick rundown. Basically, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Anchor's what I use to distribute Dad Devotionals. Here's how it works. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify, with a single tap. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Want to check it out? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey there, Dad. Do you want a job you can do online? What about a way to bring in some extra money for the family? If so, check out paidtowrite.co. That's paidtowrite.co. You can write articles, blog posts, social media posts, reviews, and more. Go to paidtowrite.co, click on the video, and Sarah will be happy to tell you how to get started. Paidtowrite.co. Go there now. Hey guys, how's your sex life with the wife these days? Too forward? Well, my guest today is here to help you be more sexually attractive to your wife. That's right. We're here to help you today, my friends. So listen up and maybe take some notes. His name is Dr. Mike Frazier. Dr. Mike helps high-achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. He graduated magna cum laude in neuroscience from Brigham Young University, attended UCLA Medical School, and completed his residency training at UC Irvine. So I guess you could say he's a pretty smart guy. He married his wife, Elizabeth, in 2005, and they have 5 children. They face significant marriage struggles, including issues with trust and communication and intimacy, but they work together to rebuild their marriage using Christian principles and the best therapy and coaching practices. And in doing so, they found what really works to create amazing mental, emotional, and sexual intimacy in marriage. Mike now helps other guys like us have that same connection with our wives through his coaching practice and podcast, Strong Men, Strong Marriages. Dr. Mike, welcome to Dad Devotionals. It's so great to have you.
Hey, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
No problem at all. So let's start with this, Dr. Mike. Take a minute and tell us what's the one thing that you want the guys out there to take away from our time together today?
You know, to me, it's about, kind of like my podcast is named, like Strong Men, Strong Marriages, to be attractive, right? It's about building strength. So building strength across different areas: spiritual strength, mental strength, emotional strength, and sexual strength is the way that I talk about it. So if you are becoming strong across those areas, you are going to be much more attractive to your wife in all ways, including sexually.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your story. Touch on that for a minute. What happened with you and your wife, and where did it go wrong in the beginning?
Yeah. So, we got married pretty young, and things were great at first. Like we met, we really liked each other. We spent like every day together, and just really seemed like the perfect match, right? So we met in March of 2005. We got married in July of 2005. So
wow, yeah,
it was short. But yeah, I mean, things were good at first, but over time, just started to the sexual piece wasn't there as much. It's happening less frequently. We had just. So that to me was really frustrating, right? So as a guy, Christian guy, I had waited until marriage to have sex, kind of expected that this was going to be part of our marriage. Like at one point, I remember shopping at Bed Bath & Beyond, and they had this pillow that was like one side said tonight and one side said not tonight. And my wife and I were like doing that, and she was like, "We don't need that because I'm going to leave it on every." It would say tonight every night. So I was like, "Yeah, like this is going to be like this is what I've been waiting for, right?" but it didn't turn out that way. So I felt, ripped off. I felt like I got lied to. I
Sure.
felt like God kind of ripped me off. Here I was like trying to do what he told me to do, and now I wasn't getting what I was wanting. Like the story I kept telling myself was like I'm doing all the work of a marriage, but I'm not getting the good part of a
Mm.
marriage. Um, so yeah, I mean, that kind of thought process was going on for a long time. Now, to add to the complexity of things, so my wife did have like really serious sexual abuse for a long time,
Mm.
um, and so that complicated things.
Sure.
And I did understand that, like coming in. I actually didn't know the extent of it coming in,
Yeah.
but I knew that was going to be kind of an issue. But
Yeah.
to me, I was like, well, like I'm not like that, like I'm not the guy that hurt her, so she should just be able to kind of like tell the difference,
Mhm.
basically. Um, so anyway, it kind of that distance grew. Like I was still, we were still doing stuff together. We were still going on dates. Like from the outside, we actually looked like we were doing fine.
Right.
Like people would have said, like people literally said, oh, like, oh man, I wish our marriage was like yours. Like at our church, we were teaching like 11-year-olds early in our marriage. And, as they grew up, they were like, oh yeah, like, I want our marriage to be like your guys. It's so good. The girls would say that more. The guys didn't really come say that to me, but the girls would say that. Um, but yeah, like inside, I was really suffering
Yeah.
and feeling ripped off, and so yeah, got to where I was like, we actually went a whole year without having sex at one point,
Wow.
and I was just like what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
Like am I like I didn't want to be unfaithful to her, just because of my own values, but I felt like, well, what am I supposed to do here? Like the one person that is supposed to have sex with me won't, but I'm not supposed to go anywhere else. I don't want to look at pornography. I definitely did sometimes, but I, felt
Mhm.
bad afterwards.
Sure.
And so it was just a rough spot. Um, so eventually, like several things happened, but the bottom line was like I had to really look at myself and like how I was behaving and thinking towards her and about her, and just see all the ways that I was really being very unattractive to
Mm.
her. And had to really adjust all that. And but I talked about building strength, like building strength across these areas, so that I wasn't as needy and dependent on her for feeling good about myself. And yeah, eventually, like we kind of got it worked out to where like I was that stronger guy. She had to do a lot of work on her own too to kind of work through her trauma that she'd been through. Um,
Sure.
but eventually we got there, and now we're just like enjoying, like we talked about, like the mental connections there, the emotional
Mhm.
connections there, sexual connections there. Like we know how to work through our difficulties, and yeah. So now I teach guys the process to kind of get there.
Yeah, so let's talk about the process a little bit.
Sure.
You told us about the how behind, what you did to, have that disconnect, and maybe where there wasn't that mutual understanding on certain things, and then obviously everyone comes to in marriage with some kind of, lack of a better term, baggage or some kind of intimacy issues or connection issues that maybe they didn't have in their past in other relationships or growing up, things like that. What did the work look like for both of you? You touched on it a little bit, but can you take us a little bit deeper?
Yeah, sure. So, the way that I think about it now, so strength is one way to think about it. Um, the other way that I think about it is like a lot of times we've heard this saying, happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically like there's sort of like three problematic ideas inside of that. One idea is that you can make your wife happy, right?
Mm.
That's one idea that's in there. It's just not true. So like that was really my story the first many years of our marriage. It was like do everything I can to make my wife happy, right? Like if she like the 5 love languages, I'm doing like all 5 of them. She wants she wants me home early. I'm home early. Like I'm turning down stuff at work so I can be here. Right.
Mm.
I'm not going with friends, so I want to be at home. So all that just kind of like make her happy, make her happy, make her happy. Right. And so sometimes she was happy, but sometimes she wasn't. And so, when she wasn't, I felt like a failure. Like, here I am doing all this and she can't be happy. So I was kind of resentful of her for that, making all these sacrifices and she can't even just like be happy about it. So, that's one problem with it. The other problem with happy wife, happy life is you kind of feel like, okay, like I did all this to make you happy and now it's your turn, right? It's your turn to make me happy. So like the way that I describe it is what we're typically looking for from our wife is attention, appreciation, affection, and sex. Like those are kind of the main things. That's what I was looking for anyway, right? Like, okay, like I buy you a flower. Now it's time for you to have sex with me. Or like I did the dishes. Now like it's time. Like I did my side. Now it's time for you to do your side. So like you're doing these nice things, but there's these like strings attached to it, or what I call is the mosquito cycle. So like you are doing these nice things, but you're trying to suck off attention, appreciation, affection, and sex from her. And eventually she picks it up. Like you can get away with it for a while. Like she might not really know it's there, especially during that kind of in love phase. You're kind of, oh yeah, I'm doing this for you, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for you. And it kind of works at first.
Right.
But eventually she kind of sees, oh, like you're doing this not just because you like me or you want to do something nice for me, you want something back from this. And so she starts kind of shutting that down. And then you get mad, right? You blow up. You either, what I call explode or escape, you either get really mad at her or you turn to pornography or like whatever your preferred thing to dull your emotions is, working out, whatever it might be. Then you feel guilty and then you go back to doing lots of nice things. And then, maybe she responds for a little and then she stops and you're just kind of caught in this cycle. So yeah. And then that last part is that she has like the power to make you happy, which really really she doesn't. You have to make yourself happy at the end of the day. Right. I think of it too as like emotional, like you have 2 cups, right? And like you have a certain amount of emotional energy in that cup. And so like when you're walking around empty and you want your wife to dump into you, she can for a while, but eventually she's just like tired of that. She gets drained. So what guys will do is they're like, oh, she's drained, now I better go somewhere else, right? And they'll have like an affair or an emotional affair or something like that. But really the truth is like if you can fill your worth up and your sense of fulfillment from God, right? And from you like being who you want to be, like you walk out full and then you pour into your wife, right? And now she, right, is attracted to you. That's the whole paradox of this whole thing. The more you're trying to get this from her, the less you're going to get, versus when you come to her and you're like, no, like I feel good about who I am and I care about you. And like, here's the funny thing. You can do the exact same things. Like you can buy her a flower like a mosquito and you can buy her a flower like someone who's full and trying to give to his wife. They're going to have totally different effects, right? The other kind of caveat to that is if you've been the mosquito giving the flower for a long time, even if you do it the right way at first, like for a while, she's going to be like, I don't like this.
Right.
But eventually as you like prove, no, like I'm not going to freak out if you don't put it in a vase right away or, whatever, like I'm going to be fine, and then she can be like, oh, like there's not that buzzing, right? There's not the mosquito there.
There you go.
And eventually she can trust that, but it takes some, time to do that.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a moment right there to thank our sponsors. But when we come back, I want to chat more with Dr. Mike about what are some of the more concrete steps that we can take to be more sexually attractive to our wives. We will be right back.
Hey, dads, are you responsible for your household or business finances? If so, check out my website, runthemoney.com. Run the Money is the place for money management tips for saving more, paying off debt, and budgeting. I also give you ideas and information for starting a side business. If you're in between jobs or need a way to get a better handle on your family's money, go to runthemoney.com runthemoney.com for free articles on money management. That's runthemoney.com. RUNTHEMONEY, all one word. Runthemoney.com. I'll see you there.
All right, we're back with Dr. Mike. His coaching practice, Strong Men, Strong Marriages, helps Christian guys better connect with their wives. All right, Dr. Mike. So what's your secret? What is the secret? How do we make ourselves more sexually attractive to the wife? That's the $64,000 question, right? So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So, there's really in my mind, kind of three pillars, right? Three foundations to have a passionate marriage, one that has the friendship and the sexual intimacy and all that. So the first part of that is trust. So trust being one part of that is just like, you're going to follow through with the things you say you're going to do. And that may seem like pretty obvious, but I think what you'll find is if you look hard, you're probably not doing that in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Like, even if it's something small, like, okay, yeah, I'll be home at 6, right? And then you're home at 7 and they're like, oh, sorry. Yeah, things just got late. And your wife may just be like, oh yeah, it's okay. Like, I get it. But really what's happening is she's like, oh, I can't really trust this guy, right? I can't really follow through. Like, I can't really know he's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Sure.
Or I forgot. Like, I do that a lot. Oh, I forgot. Right. It's not good, right? Because first of all, you don't feel as good about yourself, and then she can't really trust you. Like John Gottman, one of the big time marriage researchers, found out that the number one attractive trait for women towards men, trustworthiness. That's it. Right. And so like I work with guys who have had affairs, that kind of thing, like they've blown that out, right? Like trust is gone. And so now the other pillars like communication and intimacy, they're gone too, because when you don't trust somebody, you don't open up as much to them emotionally and mentally. You don't tell them what's going on with you because you can't trust them to like keep a secret or, say what they're going to do or be able to manage it. So, that's part of the first foundation is following through with what you're going to say you're going to do. The other part of that is really like managing your own sense of self-worth and your own emotions and doing that really well. So again, the mosquito cycle and all that, it's built on you not really having a very strong sense of self. You're trying to borrow that from your wife. You're trying to make her make you feel good about yourself. So, self-confidence, right? Where self-confidence comes from is you being a man of your word, right? Confidence, trust, like those things, like those go together. Like if you have confidence in someone, you trust them to do something. So when you follow through, you start having more self-confidence, right? Oh, like I'm a man of my word. Yeah, I do what I say I'm going to do. You have that sense of strength to you. So the other part of that is, being a man who knows what he's trying to accomplish in his life, right? Having some purpose and vision that you're working towards.
Sure.
Again, that feels solid. It feels strong. If you just nail down those two, you're actually going to be really attractive to your wife just right there, right? You're a man of your word. You're on a mission, right? You're following through with what you say. Already your wife's like, hey, like this is a good guy, right? I've got a good catch here. But then that other piece of like managing your own self-worth is so big because if you're not, you're trying to borrow it from her all the time. And it's not safe. It's not safe because it's manipulative, right? Like when you have strings attached to what you do, you're not safe. Like you're really not. You're trying to take advantage of her. And that's not good. That's not safe. The other thing, the reason I say I work with high achieving guys is this was a big thing for me and for a lot of guys who are, educated, accomplished, have done a lot of things, is we tend to kind of think we're better than the people around us. And it can really come out against our wife. And so like when it comes to money, we kind of think, oh, like I know better than her. Or, with sex, oh, like I'm more adventurous than her. She's like less developed, or, she's not as into it as me. Or like with housework, well, I do more than my share, so like all of that kind of thinking, it's designed to kind of put you above her, right? And so that more than anything else is what is destroying for the guys I work with, right? The high achieving guys, that's one of the hugest things that's just killing the intimacy in their marriage. Because what it looks like, even to their wife, right? What it looks like is, oh, here's a guy who's doing all the right things, right? He's working hard. He's out there, in the church, right? He's a good guy at church. He does so much for the kids. He makes dinners, like he does all this stuff. But I just I don't know. I just don't feel it for him. And even their wife's kind of confused. But what's really happening is this mindset. It's like, I'm better than you, right? And so their wife's like, yeah, I don't know. He does do more than me, but I just am not attracted to him. That's the dynamic. That's what's killing it. It's what I call one-up thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm better than you. I'm superior than you.
Well, what I hear in all that is inflated sense of self-worth and ego.
Yep.
Lack of humility, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you have this background in neuroscience and coaching and psychiatry, things like that. But you're messing with a woman's sense of security, which is a very basic, necessary, God-given natural instinct. And when that's not there, and then you're also playing down to her in terms of her own emotional state. I mean, you're taking and using all the things that are harmful to you, and then you're putting that on her because you think you're better, and then you're wondering why I'm not getting lucky tonight.
Yeah. And it's funny because she may agree with you, right? And this is what happened. Like, my wife and I went to our own marriage coaching and saw this pattern, right? Which is basically like, oh, I'm the savior, right? I'm the guy that's doing so much, and she's just kind of this poor suffering soul that I'm kind of dragging along. We both saw it that way, right? Yeah. And that was the problem more than anything else. That was the problem. And so to your point, right? When you're trustworthy, that creates safety. When you're not, there's no safety. And so from that, you can't build the other pillars on top of it. You can't build communication. You can't build intimacy. Right. So yeah, I mean, I would do stuff like, I'm writing a book right now. It's called Happy Wife, Happy Life is a Lie. Nice. But I was working on this part of it, and just remembering all the little lame stuff I would do to just kind of throw her under the bus, just be what was one of them? Just in the coaching itself, the coach was like, oh, would you guys be up for me sharing your case so some other people can learn? I was like, oh yeah, I will. And then I look over at her because I kind of knew she wouldn't want to. And so it was just a way for me to look I'm the good patient, and my wife is, there she is, kind of this lower person. But it was little stuff like that would happen just all the time, because I was out to prove that, right? I was out to prove, I'm the higher functioning one here.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it might easier happen with if your wife has depression or anxiety or an abuse history or things like that. It's pretty easy to start thinking that way. But that thought is the problem, right? That belief is the problem. You got to get rid of that. So yeah, the other part is being able to manage your own emotions well. This all falls within trust, because let's say your wife comes to you and she's like, hey, I don't really like when you do that. Right. I don't really like when you say that I don't know anything about money, right? I actually do know something about money. Yeah. Then you're like, oh, how do you say that, right? You get all worked up, or you get all defensive, because you can't manage. So, basically what you're showing in that moment is, I can't manage my own emotions, right? Yeah. And so again, she can't trust you. It's very unattractive. Or if you go, oh, can we have sex tonight? She's like, oh, I'm tired, right? And then you pout, oh yeah, why'd you do that to me? You go walk out of the room, or make sure she sees that you're sad or mad about it. I compare that to a kid at the store who throws a tantrum. You get you on, are you gonna lay on the ground and throw a fit? She's not gonna want to jump in bed with a toddler, right? So all of that piece of just internal management to me falls under that trust kind of umbrella. Like your wife can trust you. Just be a guy that's going to keep her safe, right? It's not going to lose his emotions. It's going to be able to handle himself and kind of like follow through with what he says he's going to do. Know what he wants out of life. Even if you can lock that one down, like you're in a pretty good spot. But then if you can layer on top of that now the second part, which is communication, right? So how good are you at actually listening to what your wife says and trying to understand it? Most guys not that good. Like, especially a guy who is like this sort of high achieving guy. You got your own business, you're a professional, you're whatever. You're kind of used to like telling people what to do, or people like listening to what you say. Right. And so when your wife comes with a different opinion, a lot of times the first inclination is to be very judgmental of it. Just be like, that's dumb. Or like if she comes to you with a problem, you're like, oh, just do that to fix it, just because that's kind of how your brain is used to doing stuff. But that's not good communication. I mean, it kind of talks to safety too, but I group it in communication. Because like, even if she starts feeling safe, like if she starts coming to you and then you shut everything down, like you're not going to have deep communication with her. So getting really good at listening and then getting really good at expressing yourself. Now, once you learn to manage your thoughts and emotions well, which is kind of in the first piece, it gets a lot easier to express yourself well because you understand yourself better. And you also understand her emotions better because you understand your own better. So you do that, and then you're able to get to win-win agreements, right? Where you both feel like, yeah, this is great, right? The way we manage our money, we're both on the same team. The way that we want to do our parenting together, yeah, we're together on that, right? So now at that point, you're really in a great spot. Like you're pretty much unbreakable at that point. You know each other's hopes and dreams. You're supporting each other in them. Like you're best friends, let's say at that point. Yeah. So then we stack on top of that the intimacy piece. So this is when you bring in the fun and flirting and passion. Like instead of just at the end of the day, just kind of like coming to your wife and be like, oh, hey, do you want to have sex tonight? Like actually like building some tension throughout the day, like some flirting through the day, bringing it up, giving her a kiss during the day, giving her a hug from behind, sending her a nice note, doing these things that just kind of like set the stage for, hey, like I like you, I like you more than friends. That's a joke my wife and I have. We like each other more than friends. So yeah, like once you stack that on top of it, and as far as like the physical part of sex, like there's lots of books and stuff you can read on that, but none of that is going to matter if you don't have these other pieces in place first. And that part then is just kind of fun, and you guys experiment and kind of find things together. But once that base is there, that comes a lot more naturally.
No, absolutely. And actually, I want to touch on some of the mistakes that we make when it comes to sex with the wife. In a recent episode of your show, Strong Men, Strong Marriages, you spoke about the top sex mistakes we're making and how to correct them. So can you take us through a couple of these and how they're actually turning our wives off?
Yeah. So I'd have to look back at exactly the ones that I said in there, but again, that like late approach is a big one. Just like not saying anything through the day, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, like, do you want to have sex? Yeah. And she's like what? Where did that come from? So having some fun and flirtation through the day is important. So, another, so that approach is one. The other, to me, the biggest one is just kind of what we already talked about, where just really believing that it's owed to you, right? Like that's the biggest issue in all of this is either you feel it's owed to you just because she's your wife, right? And you're Christian and like, that's just part of the deal, right? Or you feel like you've kind of earned it by, I did buy her flowers today, or I did send her that note. So now like that should result in sex. Like really all those things, they're treating her like a prostitute. They really are. Yeah. Because you're saying, okay, like I bought it, Or worse, if you're kind of thinking, well, like I provide for the house, and so yeah, that should be part of the deal. Like that really is it, because
Yeah.
then you've really got to bought it, right?
Right.
Women, they don't want to be treated that way. They don't want to be treated like a prostitute. They don't want to feel like they owe it to you, that you purchased it. That is, in a nutshell, like there's lots of variations of that, but it's just that mindset
Yeah.
of like, it's owed to me, right?
Do you think, let me interrupt you for a second, because I just had this thought. Do you think that, you mentioned pornography at the outset. Do you think some of that concept of being owed to you stems from, viewing that as like an epidemic among guys, not only in the US, but worldwide? Do you think some of it comes from that concept and trying to treat your wife, like a prostitute, like you said?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe that comes more in the sense of like what she may or may not be willing to do sexually. Okay. I think maybe that comes up more, but at least with the guys I work with, it's not so much like them viewing pornography that makes them think that way. I think it's more just kind of a cultural, or I don't know. I think especially in the Christian faith, right? We just kind of think that's part of the deal. And so, when we don't get it, it feels very frustrating. It feels like a ripoff. You also feel trapped, right? Because you're like, well, where's my outlet now? Like, I don't really have one if I want to stay true to my faith. So, that's where I think you get in trouble. I see pornography more as like an escape from that versus like fueling that sense of entitlement.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about how to remedy some of this. We touched on it a little bit, but you have this amazing program that I was reading about. It's called the Love, Intimacy, and Legacy Program. Now, how does this help the guys out there that you're working with, the guys out there who are struggling to connect with their wives, or even worse, maybe even on the verge of divorce? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really walk through these 3 steps, right? How do you become truly trustworthy, especially like if there's infidelity? In any of them, trust is the foundation, but there, like, we're really like, you really got to rebuild some trust there. So, and you can. That's the good news. Like, you can. And the other part too in this is, if someone comes into my program, we have to understand right off the bat, like, your wife is going to choose what she's going to choose, right? Your job is to be a good choice. That's it. Yeah. You got to be a good choice. The funny part is when you actually focus on that, that is when the attraction happens, right? When you're not trying to like, I got to win her back, which is needy and desperate and pushes her away. But instead you're like, look, I'm going to be a good choice for you. I'm going to treat you well, and you can choose me or not. I hope you do. But if you don't, I understand, right? I have been a bad choice. That approach is just, it feels much better, and it's just way more attractive. So, we work through these steps, right? Rebuilding trust, getting really good at communicating, getting really good at, bringing back that fun and flirting passion, which again, usually guys that just happens once you build these other 2, but we do like a little bit of training on that. So we go 90 days, every single day. They're in there basically. So we go through, there's modules you do and stuff, but every day you come in the morning, you go through a very set exercise. The foundation of the whole program, and like what I do and what I believe and what I really will tell you is the truth, is that everything that happens in your life starts with the way that you're thinking about things. Right? Yeah. And so like, if you have right thinking, right, then you feel better, right? And then you act better. Now, you do sometimes need like to understand what are good actions to take. But the problem is if you pair right action with wrong thinking, it doesn't work, right? Like we talked about. You can get your wife a flower, but if you have wrong thinking behind that, it doesn't work, right? It's not that giving her flowers is the wrong thing. It's just you paired it with the wrong thinking. So we just get in and dig deep into, how are you thinking about yourself? How are you thinking about your wife? How are you thinking about your kids, right? Really being deliberate about the way that we're thinking about those things. And then that helps you feel let's say, loving towards your wife. So when you're consistently walking around feeling loving towards yourself and your wife, you're going to do things that are loving, right? Your intention behind those actions is going to be loving. And all of that is attractive, right? What we always look at is your feeling attractive or not? Is your intention attractive or not, right? And so we just get really detailed. And so every morning they go through an exercise again to kind of put their minds in a good place. They take some time to connect with God, jot down God's message to them for the day, which has been really cool. We kind of build off each other's kind of messages. Yeah. It's a cool, inspiring thing. During the day, now you're working on the skills, right? How do I interact with my wife? How do I communicate well? Then in the evening, they go through a very structured kind of review of their day. And then I review that every day, Monday to Friday, and just give them feedback on it. Okay, this went well, this didn't, here's what you missed, and so every day they're just seeing improvements, and they're just like getting results so fast, because the cool thing about changing your thinking is it can happen like that. Like there doesn't have to be a delay in the way that you think. Now, what happens, right, is so you make these shifts fast, you're changing, and your wife's going to put resistance against it, because she wants to believe that changes are happening, but she also wants to know that it's not just like a game and it's going to stay, right? So her correct response is to either give you no feedback or even give you negative feedback. And she might do this consciously, but I think it's generally unconscious, right? But it's the right thing for her to do, because she has to prove to her, and you have to prove to yourself, that like, my wife's response actually doesn't matter. I'm still going to behave in this way because that's who I want to be as a man. And then once you prove that, now you're super attractive and you have that connection. So yeah, it's basically how it works. Every day we're going through, we're getting coaching every day. We do a weekly group call. We do an initial one-on-one call, just like make sure you understand the process. But yeah, man, I mean, guys are getting results faster than ever because of this daily work compared to like, a weekly therapy where most of the time you forgot most of what happened during the week, and you come in and then you don't implement anything all week. It's just kind of, this is why like traditional marriage counseling doesn't have the best reputation, is because a lot of times not much is happening the rest of the week. So this way, just every day, man, you're in there and like you're committed for 90 days. The reason we do it 90 days too is it takes between like 21 and 60 days to build a habit. So you go 90, like you're locked in, like this is now a habit for you.
Well, and I was going to mention the habit thing. I'm so glad that you did. But then also us guys, we need that structure. If we're not making, that 1% change of an improvement every day or doing something towards it, like you said, we're going to forget about it. It's not going to be on our schedule. It's got to be on the schedule. It's got to be, we're very action oriented, and that's the way our brains are wired. I mean, you're a neuroscience. That's what it's like it's like probably the first class, right? I mean, men need to do something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing that I've learned, right, is because I used to think, and I think this will be a good take home for everybody, right? I used to think that, as a guy, you should just do the right thing all the time because it's the right thing. That is the ideal. But I'd say like, this is something I learned from my own coaching, probably like 1% of guys operate that way. And then like, there's this like maybe 2% that just like doesn't care, right? They do the wrong thing and whatever. They're probably in jail, most of these people. But then in that like 97% area is like me and you, right? And most guys, where you're going to do the right thing, but when like there's somebody watching, basically, there's the accountability piece. So like now the accountability in the program is super high. Like every day you got to be showing up. And even for myself, like when I started adding that in, like I've taught these concepts for a long time, but when I knew like there's people waiting for me to like do my post, because I do my post too. Like I'm doing the same thing these guys are. Like when I knew they were waiting, I didn't miss. Like I have not missed a day. But a huge part of that is because I know somebody is watching, right?
Yes.
Like, I know somebody's on the other side. There have been nights where I'm like, oh man, like I really don't feel like it, or like, oh man, like it's 11 o'clock, I forgot to do it. But I'm like, I'm not gonna freaking miss because like somebody's sitting there, and if I don't do it, like I can't ask them to do it.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, you got to set the example as a coach, as a parent, and even in many ways as the husband. We're called to be leaders in the home, leaders in the church. At the very least, we need to set the example and raise the bar in many ways. Or are we going to live a godly life or not? That's what it comes down to, because we're going to be judged for it at some point by the man upstairs. So.
Totally. No, the best compliment I've gotten, and I've gotten this a few times now from guys in the program, is like they feel more connected to God at the end of the program. And to me, like that's it, right? Like my job is to try to use like God's Spirit and use my gifts and talents to like help guys. But at the end of the day, like I'm limited in what I can do. But if they can really get that strong connection with God and pair it with like some good skills they've learned in this, like, they're going to take that forever, and just like God's always available to them. So yeah, that's what I think is the biggest compliment to me, and really what we're trying to do, all of us, right, is just get that connection deeper with God.
Absolutely. That's the ultimate compliment, if you ask me. Well, now is the time of the show, the Fatherhood 5, the lightning round, my favorite segment of any show that I do. I always think it tells the most about a person when you give them these 5 pointed questions. So first thing that comes to mind, 30 seconds or less. Ready to go?
Sure.
All right. First one. What is the most rewarding thing about being a parent?
Oh, man. I think, now as part of the program, right, we do this kind of visualization thing in the morning. To me, it's just like seeing the smiles with the kids, right? And just like spending that time together, seeing them grow, right? Connect with God, connect with themselves, and being able to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Now, what about the most difficult thing about being a parent?
So I think it's just controlling yourself.
Yeah.
I think for me, I talk about this on my podcast all the time, but like my boys are older now. One's almost 16 and one's 13. So we play sports a lot, and they can like beat me sometimes now. And that's been really hard on me. Just as like a competitive guy, like I've gotten like so mad in the past. And so I think it's just like really managing yourself, right? Managing your own emotions, taking yourself out of it. The kind of the revelation I had on that a couple of days ago is just like being their fan instead of their competition in that particular case. But I think being a parent, it just like really shows you where you're off. And so like just being able to look at that and say, okay, like this is an area for growth, instead of being like putting it on them, oh, like you're just a jerk, right? Or you shouldn't be such a brat. But being like, oh shoot, like I need to not act like that, right? and not think that way or feel that way.
No, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that, I mean, as you know, I'm sure you work with it, is being able to regulate our own emotions. And I actually, in last season, season 3, I had David Thomas on, who wrote this awesome book called Raising Emotionally Strong Boys.
Nice.
And yeah, I gotta tell you, I mean, it changed the way my wife and I view how we're going to raise our son. We have a son. I have a 6.5-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. And when you spoke like that about your sons, it's just like the concept of having that emotional toolbox and being able to, be in a position where, you're rooting for, whether it's a friend or your own family or something like that, as opposed to being, well, how can I put myself ahead of everybody?
Right.
And just having that in our own relationships, in our marriages. I mean, you nailed it. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that up. How do you react when one of your kids does something wrong?
Oh, it depends on the day. But, in my best moments, right, I'm able to, some of the use some of the tools that I know, right? Like take myself out of it, just help them see like, is this going to create what you want in your life or not? Right?
Yeah.
Like, does this make you feel the way that you want to or not? Right? Does this create outcomes for you that you want or not? Right? So use it as a teaching moment.
I love that. That's exactly what we're about here on Dad Devotional. So that's perfect. Fourth question: best resource on having a better Christian marriage, other than any of your own programs or your own podcast.
That's the best one. But, let's see. So, tell me the question again. Just marriage in general, or
Christian marriage. I mean, you can touch about on sexual intimacy or another topic.
Yeah. So, Christian marriage. Here's my thing with some of that. So like stuff like 5 love languages, or like his needs, her needs, love and respect, that are like more Christian based.
Mm-hmm.
I think my hang up with some of those is that it can get you into this problematic thinking, which is, okay, well, let's take 5 love languages. Okay, if I give my wife her love language, she needs to give me mine back. And if she doesn't, I don't need to give her hers. I think it's really easy to get into that thinking with those.
Kind of like the quid pro quo kind of deal,
exactly.
Give and take. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think you just have to be careful. I think they have good concepts, but you just can't take that mindset into it of like, okay, like his needs, her needs, like you need to meet my needs now. Like I'm at yours, now it's your turn. That's that whole like happy wife, happy life thing that got me in trouble and gets lots of guys in trouble. So
sure.
I think, it's not exactly even a marriage book, but 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one of my favorite, just because it's about personal, it's like managing yourself, right? And then how do you take that into relationships? Win-win and seek first to understand, like those 2 concepts will take your marriage farther than anything. That's like one of the big things that we focus on in the program, is just getting really good at that. But to get good at that, right, to actually really understand your wife, you've got to manage your own emotions, or else you won't be able to listen to her. So I'd say that one, 7 Habits, is just kind of like a good foundation of how relationships work.
I love that as a marriage tool. That's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. We will link that up in the show notes. Stephen Covey, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Stephen Covey.
That's what I thought. Can't go wrong there. I mean, that guy was he was truly amazing.
Yeah.
Give us a Christian quote or a Bible verse that you're meditating on lately.
Oh, with all this kind of one-up mentality stuff, I'm looking at, just the ones about where Jesus is really getting mad at hypocrites, right? He's like, you look for these titles in these titles and all this, and you have your reward. Like you already got it. Like if that's what you're looking for, you already got it, man. Like, and so whether that's in your marriage, right, and you're looking for that appreciation, like that's it. That's all you're gonna get. If you approach it from a service standpoint, like you feel good, and you're also more likely to get, more of what you want back. So yeah, I think that's one, that kind of whole section in there. I can't like quote one to you right now. I wish I could, but that just that part in there of basically like, don't do it for, the appreciation or the like honor of the world, or, for what you want from your wife, but just do it because you want to serve in that way.
Amen. That is the perfect way to end this talk. But we're going to give you a chance to tell us where we can connect with you and learn more about your programs and your podcast.
Yeah, great. So like as you mentioned, the podcast is Strong Men, Strong Marriages, and it's on all the major platforms. And then you can either, it's probably easier to remember, just go to strongmenstrongmarriages.com, and that'll send you to my website.
Perfect. We will link all that up in the show notes. Dr. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you for helping Christian men get out of their own heads and get unstuck and really try to build more intimate marriages. May God grant you many blessed years for your family, for your wife, and for your coaching practice. Take care, my friend.
Appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Thanks for listening to Dad Devotionals. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter at daddevotionals.com/subscribe. Until then, God bless.